Guys, welcome back to the Hawkszone Rundown. We got an awesome show today. We have Calvin Domingo coming on the show, aka Steezy A. Smith. Third go around with Steezy. We're excited to have him back, man. He's one of our original guests on the Hawkszone, so we're fired up. Today we're gonna get into some camp battle talk. Talk about a lot of guys, some of the new guys they brought in on short term, quote unquote tryout deals, as they kind of want to call it. So we're going to look at a lot of the defensive side of the ball. You got the linebacker room, you got the corner room that's really deep, but there's going to be some competition there, and the safeties. There's just a lot of interesting moves that can be made and shuffle around, and just guys battling out. And we haven't even hit the draft yet. Then we're going to talk to Steez about a couple of the quarterbacks they brought in with Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler, a guy that we've talked about a lot, and go over a couple other things with Steez. Then we're going to jump to another mock, and it's gonna be an interesting mock with Steez. We're going to get in there and just let him play GM and kind of make those final decisions. And then after we sort of go over and talk about all this move. So B Rice, real quick, man, what's happening? And we're a couple weeks out from the draft, man. So things are getting real.
Yeah, man, things are getting real. I'm really stoked. Draft's getting here pretty quick, and you're starting to see maybe some of the moves that might get made now. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to Calvin, find out kind of what his vibes on the Hawks are and what they might do, and dive into another mock. You know me, I love doing our mock drafts.
Yeah, you definitely do. So and I'm fired up too. So Steezy A. Smith coming up on the other side.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. What a run! Marshawn Lynch, get off me!
DK. Hey, it's John Schroeder with Seattle Seahawks.
That's the results you want.
This offense, just in general. I mean, you had a guy like
watching
that.
his film, he seems more of a back.
Just the presence he's got in that pocket, the way he throws the football. Rust days, man. All the scrutiny that line was under.
This Monday night's big.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Back for the third go-around with us, Calvin Domingo, a.k.a. Steezy A. Smith, hanging out with us once again, talking Hawks. Man, we appreciate you coming on the show again.
Man, as always, man, I love working with you guys. And, I had Bryce on the show, I think it was a month or two ago, and I was looking to have you on, Ryan. Right. I know that I think something was up, and so we weren't able to do that. But, I do try to host shows weekly, and, I'm looking forward to having you on soon. So
appreciate that, man.
Yeah,
that sounds good, man. Well, you know what? Let's get right into the show here. So obviously, been a crazy off season. We're at the point now where we're a couple weeks out from the draft, but talking about some guys real quick for as far as potential camp battles, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, brand new linebackers, safeties are quite a bit different. Julian Love's still there, and a couple of the other younger guys, and even how deep that corner room is. What do you think's going to happen with some of those guys? Let's start kind of with the safety room. You got obviously a couple guys they've brought in, but you still have guys like Kobe Bryant and guys like that. How do you see that playing out? Obviously Julian's probably he probably has a spot, so you're looking at maybe one potential spot. You think it's going to be a competition there? You think it's kind of locked in already?
I think it's kind of locked in. Like you talked about, Julian Love's the obvious one. Not only is he coming off a Pro Bowl season, but he just, I think, shattered all expectations, especially towards the latter half of last season. He's kind of earned, a right to be locked into a spot. And I think when you kind of look at the money that Seattle gave to Rayshawn Jenkins, his contract is almost identical to Julian Love. It's not nothing crazy, right? It's 2 years and $12 million. But I just think when you compare that to Kayvon Wallace's 1 year, I think, $1.5 million deal, money-wise, I think Rayshawn's almost kind of locked in himself. But Kayvon Wallace, I mean, I do like what I saw from him last year in spurts, right, with the Titans, with the Cardinals. I didn't watch him too much in college, but just kind of going over the scouting reports and what pundits were saying about him coming out of college, he's an aggressive safety, an in-the-box type of safety, an aggressive tackler. He's able to sniff out runs, and he could get after the quarterback. And so I think he's a perfect fit for this defense. He's probably going to be the third safety, right? I don't think he's locked into the starting spot by any means, but I definitely do like the moves that Seattle has made at safety.
So it's kind of interesting when you talk about that safety room there, Calvin, because it's like you've got Kayvon Wallace, who, like you said, in the box, can blitz, go after the quarterback. I wonder how much now that changes this defensive alignment when it comes to Spoon playing in the slot and blitzing and doing some of the stuff he did last year, because Mike McDonald made the one comment of, I want to have lockdown corners on the outside. So does that now mean, because they brought in a Kayvon Wallace, they could still draft somebody in the draft in a couple weeks? How much does Witherspoon truly play in that slot now?
Man, that's a great question. I think with Spoon, I mean, he's just so versatile. He could literally play anywhere and be successful, right? I mean, he could do anything and everything on the football field. I think it's kind of hard to answer that question right now. I'd hate to kind of, give you this answer, but I'd prefer to wait until after the draft, just because I do feel like Seattle is still going to add another corner or two, another safety or two, and I just don't think Seattle's done adding defensive backs to the room.
Yeah. No, I was actually going to touch on that too. So I was going to move over to the corner question next. Obviously, that room's pretty deep, but, based on, say, Mike McDonald coming in here and sort of the way he, likes certain players and all this kind of stuff. But, you got Spoon, you got Riq, you got Mike Jack, you got
Trey Brown.
You got Trey Brown, who I like. But you look at that. So, and we think the same thing. Like, they could add another corner. How are you seeing that shape up? Obviously there was some questions with Riq's sort of lack of aggression, and was that going to be an issue? Obviously he had a great rookie year, so obviously still has a high ceiling. We think he could be maybe even a potential piece in a trade, because he's because you still got that rookie year high that people see with him. And I'm not saying that I would want to see that happen or not see that happen, but just because you are pretty deep, he could be a piece, and we'll get into the draft in a bit. But how do you see that playing out? And yeah, are you leaning towards them going after another corner possibly in the draft?
So Seattle's going to take a cornerback. I prefer it not to happen until day 3, just because, like you guys alluded to, I mean, the cornerback room is so stacked. Like last offseason, you guys, I was hyping up the cornerback room. I even posed the question. I was like, yo, do the Seahawks have the best cornerback room in the NFL from top to bottom? And obviously a lot of people outside of Seattle would look at me crazy, would look at anybody saying something like that crazy. But when you're seeing all, a bunch of quality corners, I mean, we didn't even talk about R.D. Burns, who I think is a solid veteran. He didn't have a lot of playing time last year, but when he was on the field, I mean, he was above average, or average at the very least, right? And so I wouldn't want to address it until day 3, like I talked about. But real quick, just to address what you said about Riq, because I have people that are connected to Riq, and so a lot of the people that I've spoken to have told me that, the shoulder injury was just something new, something that he hasn't really dealt with, throughout his career playing football. And so the lack of aggression, I do think that a lot of it has to do with him, being hampered by that shoulder injury just throughout the year. Because when we go back to his rookie season, he had like 3 or 4, maybe 5 missed tackles. And so last year, I think that's more of an anomaly, more of an outlier type of season in regards to, the lack of aggression in the tackling. Just because in his rookie season, I don't think anybody was talking about how, he can't tackle, to save his life. Like, I don't remember any of that. And I don't remember any glaring tackling issues from that season. Now, if going into training camp preseason, if we see that again this year, then it's like, okay, we can't use the whole injury thing as an excuse. But I'm not completely against it. Like, if a team is willing to offer a first round pick for a Riq Woolen, maybe a day 2 pick, maybe multiple day 2 picks, then perhaps Seattle could bite, just because the cornerback room is still so solid. And I'd imagine that Mike McDonald would want to handpick some of his cornerbacks, because we talk about how stacked the cornerback room is, but none of these guys are handpicked or selected by Mike McDonald. And so that's the only reason why I'd see Seattle potentially drafting a cornerback on day 3, just so Mike McDonald can handpick a guy or two. But man, I'm real excited for the cornerback room.
Yeah.
So speaking about Mike McDonald handpicking guys, obviously our linebacker room in the free agency kind of got cleaned out a little bit.
Right.
And we added some guys on some 1-year deals in Tyler Dotson and Jerome Baker. Do you think, well, obviously I think we're going to add somebody in the draft. Do you think Seattle adds a linebacker to that competition for camp higher in the draft, a day 1 or 2 pick possibly, or do you think they're looking to fill that in the back end of the draft?
Ooh, that's a great question. Honestly, I'm going to predict probably the day one or two, because I do think that Seattle can trade down from 16, still pick towards the bottom of the first round, and then end up with an additional pick and end up with a day two pick. So somewhere in the second round. I do think that Seattle can address linebacker. I do think that Seattle will address linebacker a little earlier just because linebacker isn't a very strong position in this draft class. And so the later in the rounds that you get, I just don't think that you're going to bring on a contributor that can compete with some of these guys. And so if you want to bring in a linebacker that can compete to start on day one, you're going to have to target that position a little early.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that too. I think, obviously it's interesting because a lot of these, you look at a lot of these contracts, and like they said, it's a lot of these quote unquote tryout sort of, 1 year, 2 year deals. A lot of guys are on, right? So, and you look at the guys like Dotson and Jerome Baker, and they got a lot of good things, but you're gonna wait and see. Like, Baker's sort of an undersized guy, but he's a great coverage dude, right? But like, how is he gonna be in that run defense and stuff like that? So, who knows? Maybe one of those guys gets extended, after next year, and maybe not. But I think that's definitely what they're going to do. They're definitely going to bring in another guy. But when do they do it? There's a couple of linebackers that we like, and we're going to touch on that in the mock. So, obviously that room is not as deep, right, as the other two rooms that we discussed. But so that's how we're sort of looking at that at the linebacker position right now. But real quick, what are your thoughts on Baker and Dotson coming in? Like, as far as just it's obviously shorter contracts, but you see it more of a tryout kind of, let's see what happens, and you see a potential extension for those guys.
I think Dotson right now, I mean, I know he was more of a flash in the pan, right? Just because last year was really our first time seeing him in extended action. But I thought that the Buffalo Bills defense was doomed as soon as Matt Milano went down. That didn't end up being the case. And I think Tyrell Dotson had a lot to do with that. He's versatile. Mike McDonald talked about how every guy on defense, like, you're not going to know who's going to be blitzing, who's going to be doing this, who's going to be doing that. Tyrell Dotson in limited action, I mean, like you guys alluded to, excelled in coverage, was forcing fumbles, forcing turnovers. He was getting after the run. He was aggressive, played with a lot of energy, a lot of intensity. And so I think he's definitely a guy that Seattle might look to keep around for the long haul, as long as he's able to kind of build off what we saw last year. I think he's also younger, which I think helps him in this case. Jerome Baker, I don't know if it was last season or the year prior, he tore his ACL, and he is a little older. But like you said, Ryan, I mean, he's almost elite in coverage, right? Like, you don't see a lot of linebackers move like him in coverage. Yes, he's a little bit on the lighter side, and so perhaps that's one of the reasons why he excels in coverage. But just to kind of answer the question, I mean, I think it'd be Tyrell Dotson, and I'm super excited about him.
Oh, yeah.
So speaking of, like, the draft and what's going to happen here, Calvin, like, the top 30 visits, the guys they brought in, I find it kind of interesting that we have a glaring need on the offensive line. Mm-hmm. Everyone's talking about it. Our interior guard position is very, very vacant currently as the roster sits. But it's interesting that the visits they've had are mainly focused on defensive guys. Like, there's been a few offensive linemen in that, but it seems, again, the main focus has been on defensive side. What do you take? Do you think it's smokescreen by John Schneider because they have guys in the top part of the draft they're really interested in? Or do you really think that they could go and fortify the defensive side with a new defensive head coach, bring him a new toy that's his hand-picked guy? Or do you think they take an offensive lineman in the first couple of days?
I mean, I'd hope that Seattle takes an offensive lineman. I mean, it seems like every single year, there's struggles on that offensive line. And I know a lot of people like to talk about, John Schneider doesn't like to draft offensive linemen early, and he's always going to want to wait until day 2, until day 3. But you look at how stacked this offensive line class is, right? We look at wide receiver class, the offensive line class. These are probably the 2 deepest groups in this draft class. And so it's like, you got to take advantage of that, right? And Seattle has so many weapons already offensively. Defensively, you have a defensive-minded head coach who's able to coach guys up. Like, we saw so many Baltimore Ravens last year have career seasons. And so I don't think Mike McDonald needs to draft high pedigree, high profile defenders to be able to add to his vision of what he has for this defense. And so when you look at the offensive line, I mean, Ryan Grubb, Seattle's offensive coordinator, he's an offensive-minded or an offensive lineman type of coach, right? And that's kind of where his background stems from. John Schneider was, among other, contingents in the Seahawks front office, was at the UW Pro Day. And they were watching, Troy Fautanu, and I'm forgetting his name. There was another offensive lineman on that UW offensive line that also, could potentially be drafted in the later rounds. So I think that helps that John Schneider and other front office members were at the pro day. It also helps that Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb already know Troy Fautanu, and you only get 30 visits, right? And so you spend 3 of them on a quarterback, so that leaves you with 27. And I just think that when you have a guy like a Troy Fautanu, you already know him, right? Scott Huff and Ryan Grubb have spent so much time with him these last couple of years. If he is going to be the guy that they end up picking, then I just don't see why they would need a waste a top 30 visit just because you have guys in the building that are super familiar with what he does and what he brings to the table. But again, just to kind of adjust the question, I would hope that it's not just in the early rounds, but in round 1. Like Seattle has to take a guy no matter what, whether that's Troy Fautanu, Talise Fuaga, J.C. Latham, Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson. I mean, again, there's options galore.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I don't know if it's smoke and mirrors, but it's a huge need, obviously. Like the offensive line, we can all agree that's number one. I mean, obviously, we didn't do much in the free agency market with it. Obviously, bringing up, we pretty much brought in depth pieces. Even the George Fant, that was like, I like Fant, but it's almost like we look at it too as almost an insurance policy because we don't know what's happening with Abe Lucas and his knee, and it's better than calling Jason Peters off the couch like we did last season, right? So
Right.
It's kind of one of those things. I mean, obviously, if Lucas is healthy, that's great because then you got more depth there, right? And with Fant, but so and if Fautanu, I mean, yeah, that guy is just a stud, and talking to different guys, he can play tackle, he can play guard. You could probably be a guy that can be versatile, and you can find a spot for him wherever. But it's going to take time too. You bring in young guys that you can draft all you want, and especially in that offensive line, it's going to take some time. I mean, it's interesting when we did draft Cross and Lucas, that did come together quickly. It really did, which was nice to see. So maybe you get a guy like that, and it can click a little quicker than you think too. So we'll see. But hey, man, moving over to an interesting need that I mean, me and Bryce and I thought they're drafting a QB no matter what this draft, especially before the Sam Howell trade. And then when that happened, we're like, okay, well, maybe not, talks sort of simmered down, like, okay, maybe they're not going to draft a quarterback and all this. But then it's like, well, you replace your backup that left in Drew Lock. So, we still got to, we look at it like you got to quit kicking the can down the road here. Like, and we're Geno Smith guys, but we also look at it like, mid 30s. And is he going to win you a Super Bowl? We don't think so. And it's like, we still think he's a great player, but you got to look for that QB in the future. Is this the draft? They brought in a couple of guys, one that we've talked about a lot, in Spencer Rattler, also brought in Bo Nix. What's your takeaway from that? And do you also think that a QB could get drafted?
Man, real quick, there was actually a third quarterback, and I just want to make sure I'm getting his name correct because I talked about this on yesterday's show from UCF, John Rhys Plumlee.
Right, yeah.
And so, like I said earlier, you only have 30 pre-draft visits, and you've spent 3 of them on quarterbacks. And obviously, that's not the end-all, be-all, right? A lot of the guys that you end up hosting for pre-draft visits, a lot of times you're not going to be able to draft these guys. But I think with Seattle bringing in that many quarterbacks, to me, that's a very clear indication that, Seattle is going to lead this draft with at least one quarterback. And I talked about this on yesterday's show. I'm fine with Seattle double dipping at quarterback in the same offseason. I mean, we look at the year Russell Wilson was drafted, right? Seattle double dipped that year. You signed a Matt Flynn in free agency and you drafted a Russell Wilson. There was a holdover from the year prior. I don't remember if it was Tavares Jackson. It was T-Jack. Okay, well, rest in peace. Rest in peace to Tavares Jackson. And so the way that I look at it this year, Geno Smith is the holdover. He's the guy that you inherited. Sam Howell is one guy that you, I guess, handpick or select. You got him via trade. And now it's time to draft one. And so, like you guys talked about, I mean, there's no quarterback signed after 2025. Both Sam Howell and Geno Smith's contracts are set to expire after the next season. And so I think Sam Howell can be a guy, that Seattle keeps in the long run, I do believe that he can be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. I've been high on him since even before the Commanders drafted him in the 5th round. But again, you have a new regime coming into place. This is essentially an entire new coaching staff. You want to give guys, or you want to give this group of guys, their chance to find their quarterback of the future. And so what better way to do that than, by way of the draft? And like we talked about earlier, it's more top heavy, but there's a bunch of options at quarterback. Spencer Rattler, I wouldn't mind. Bo Nix, I wouldn't mind. And like I also said earlier, I think Seattle does trade down from 16. They're still going to have a pick in the 20s. And then maybe you pick up a pick in the 30s and 40s. If that's what ends up happening, I think if Bo Nix is still on the board, maybe you take him, in the early 30s. And then whoever ends up being available, for you in the 20s, whether that's an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman or a pass rusher, then you kind of go in that direction. But I mean, Ryan, to answer your question, yeah, I think Seattle has to leave this draft with at least one quarterback. Maybe they draft 2. I don't know. Who knows? But John Schneider has been lamenting all offseason the fact that he only drafted 2 quarterbacks in the whole time that him and Pete Carroll were working together, Russell Wilson and Alex Magoo. I can guarantee y'all he's not going to make that same mistake.
So the last topic I wanted to touch on with you, Calvin, before we get into the mock draft is, what is your take on Devondre Sweat's situation, the DUI now, and Seattle still bringing him in for a visit? Like, for me, at least, it's giving me red flag flashbacks to Malik McDowell. Like, I get doing your due diligence, and probably now this guy's stock is going to drop a bit, and you might be able to get him late 2nd, 3rd round. But you look at his history, like the first, I think it was 3 years or so he was at Texas. He had problems with partying and being overweight and all this kind of stuff. To have this happen to you 3 weeks before the draft and how bad it seems to be that his blood alcohol level was, what's your take on Seattle still bringing him in for a visit and that whole thing? Does that give you any kind of hesitation?
Just a little bit, but I think when you're a franchise like the Seahawks, when you're a franchise like the Ravens, like the Eagles, teams that have a great reputation around the league, you have the luxury of being able to take, guys with red flags as it pertains to, character or whatever off the field issues, just because there's so much stability, there's so much respect. There's just so many. I think the Seahawks are one of the few franchises, not just in the NFL, but across all sports, that, again, has this luxury of being able to take a guy like a Devondre Sweat. They've worked with guys in the past, right? Frank Clark, he's worked out. Eagles, right, with Jalen Carter last year. And I just think that at the end of the day, I mean, when you're able to rely on the stability and the culture and the sort of franchise that you have this luxury. And so I think it's Seattle just being Seattle, like you said, doing their due diligence. Yes, I'm a little hesitant, but at the same time, I do believe in the stability and just how elite this franchise is, just how it moves. And so I have no doubt in my mind that if he were to be drafted by the Seahawks, then they could get him right.
Yeah, no, hey, good points on that. Listen, real quick before we get into this mock, I just want to get your opinion, talk about the QBs. I want to follow up. Out of those 3 guys, because obviously Penix has just skyrocketed. Like his stock has just got so stupid. And we talked a couple guys, and I've always said this about, the Pacific Northwest. It's like nobody knows about you until they do. You know what I mean? And that was the thing. And then when the pro day happened, you had other guys here, and it's like, wow, this guy can actually play. And it's like, did you guys never watch any of his games? And that's what happens up here, right? That's what happens in Seattle and just in general. So anyways, we kind of know that, like Bryson, I think he might be gone way before 16. But so, the guys that we just threw out there, Nix, Rattler, who would you like to see late if you could get a late guy? Milton is another name. I know they didn't bring him in, but I'd say some of the late guys before we jump into the mock, who sort of gets you kind of excited?
Man, that's a great question. I want to say Spencer Rattler, but the guy you just brought up, Joe Milton, I mean, he has a cannon of an arm. I understand the offense that they ran over at Tennessee isn't completely conducive, right, to success in the NFL. He is a bit of an older prospect. I think he spent 6 years, in college. And so it is a little concerning to see that he still needs so much refinement and development at the quarterback position. But when you look at those tools, the traits, the cannon of an arm, the rushing upside and the mobility, there's upside there, right? And I just think that with the Ryan Grubb and with everybody, in Seattle, again, the franchise is just there's so much stability and there's so much to work with. I think that this franchise is able to bring the most out of a lot of guys and able to bring out the best version of a lot of guys. And so if Seattle were to spend a late round pick on a Joe Milton, who has all the physical tools and traits in the world, I think that could end up being something.
Yeah. A little bit of Anthony Richardson vibe. That's sort of
right.
That's sort of what we get from him, right? So yeah, man, we'll see what happens here coming up. Because we're gonna jump into to the mock right now. If you're ready to go, let's do it. We're back here. We are using Walk the Mock. We've done this, use these guys the last couple of times. Big fans. So we're gonna kick this off. We have, as everybody knows, the number 16th pick in the first round. So let's get it going. See how it leads up to number 16 here, and then see what we want to do.
All right, so let's skip to our pick. All right, so I don't know what it is in Walk the Mock, but they do not like Caleb Williams going to the Bears. That's all I can say.
That's weird.
Where did he go? Oh,
he went to Washington.
The Commanders?
Right. Okay.
Apparently,
they're first to the Chargers. Wow.
Yeah, so it's a bit of it throws some curveballs at you here and there, but clearly Shane Waldron and that staff are not enamored with the quarterback situation.
They don't like any quarterbacks.
So Caleb Williams trade made. So there you go. Troy
Fautanu gone.
Fautanu at 7. That's crazy.
Jaden Daniels is off the board. Dallas Turner. Joe. There you go. McCarthy.
Yeah.
To Minnesota or to
Bo Nix, Raiders.
Bo Nix went to the Raiders. So the last time we did this, it was Michael Penix.
Okay, so
Newton jumped up to 12, which I've seen him go later. And so here we are. We're at pick 16.
This is interesting, Steve. So Penix still out there.
He is
right now. I don't know if we like Bryce and I talked about. We either think he could be gone to the Raiders or the Vikings, right? Like very, very high possibility. So, it's kind of interesting when you get down here. We're going to leave the final decision to you, but let's go through a few guys. So obviously Penix on the board. Bryce, you want to go through a few other guys?
Yeah. So obviously there's a couple good corners on the board in Mitchell and Arnold. Fuaga's still on there. Byron Murphy, Latu, Latham, Wiggins, Brian Thomas, Mims is there. This gentleman here, Cooper DeJean, is someone that I think if Seattle trades back and he's the top of their board of best player, that's a chess piece for Mike McDonald to use, like a Kyle Hamilton. And I don't see him playing corner in the NFL. I see him playing safety.
Oh, wow.
Okay. I see him being someone you would add to your safety room where maybe he plays that. And like you said, Kayvon Wallace's contract is vet minimum deal. If you're able to get this guy, he now plays your in the box instinctual blitzing slot. Witherspoon and him become interchangeable. You don't know who's coming from where, and then maybe in a year he drops back and is your new safety in the back end.
Oh my gosh, him and Spoon would just be a nightmare.
It would be a nightmare. And then you got Jackson Powers Johnson, Robinson. So there's a lot of guys here. Kelvin, what do you want to do? You want to trade back? You think that's the right move?
Honestly, yeah, there's still so many offensive linemen left. I would trade back. I don't want to trade back too deep though, but I do want to trade back into the early 20s, preferably.
So generally for us who we look to trade back with, Green Bay's one team, Buffalo, and the other one is Detroit. Mainly because the three things in there, Green Bay needs corner help, Buffalo needs receiver help, and Detroit, I think they're pressed to come up and get a playmaker because they are so close to being on a Super Bowl level. So I think we should probably trade back with Detroit here. I think that's a good bet, and we might, because we're going to the late 20s there, we might be able to get 3 picks out of this, where we can get a second, the 1, and maybe a third or a fourth out of it. So we walk away with 3 picks for the price of 1. So let's see what Detroit likes to do here. Okay. So we'll take their 129. We'll take their 229. And let's see if we can do this. Now they're coming up. They're coming up though.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, but you got to think where they're coming up from, guys. So let's see if I push accept. Let's see what happens. They took it.
Oh wow! Oh yeah,
You
I
guys
mean,
have to remember
that'd be no brainer. I mean, that would be crazy if he got
that'd be
those picks.
crazy.
But
But
you
at
gotta
the
think
same
about it from
time-
Detroit's perspective. They're almost jumping up
Yeah, they're jumping up
spot.
half the round.
half the
Okay.
round. So when you do that, you do end up paying more. So they didn't pay much more. They paid 152 points more than what the pick's worth. That's not that crazy. So we're now down here at pick 29. So let's skip to that and see what happens, and we'll see what Detroit did with our pick. Okay, so there you go. Detroit took Quinyon Mitchell to help their back end there. Smart pick. Arnold went right after. So the two corners, bang, bang. Bengals took a tackle. That's kind of interesting.
Patrick
And
Paul. Oh,
that's not what I wanted to see. They just got rid of Aaron Donald. Now they add another rusher. Roman Wilson's off. There you go. Chris Broswell, Robinson, like Byron Murphy went to see what is with our division, man. Like, honestly, Steezy, our division has a thing for picking talented players on the D line. It's driving me nuts.
all the time. Oh man.
Okay, so we're sitting here at 29 now. So if we look at the big board, Nate Wiggins is still on it, Mims, and Cooper DeJean. But you know who also didn't go in that entire selection process?
Penix.
Penix is still on the board. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So what do we do here? Because there's that guy sitting there now we're at pick 29.
It's on you. It's on you, Steezy.
It's all you, man. This is your thing. What do you want to do?
Oh my gosh. Okay, this is a great position to be in. I will say that. Who are some of the offensive linemen left on the board though, besides Mims?
Okay, I will bring that up for you. Do you want? So we'll go interior O line. So you got Jackson Powers Johnson.
Okay, Jackson. Okay.
You got Zach Frazier as interior. Cooper Beebe, Christian Haynes, Van Prine, Pooney. So like some of these guys, you can get later on in the draft, and then I'll bring up O tackle for you as well.
Please and thank you.
So Mims, Guyton, and Graham Barton's still there too.
Graham Barton's still there. Ooh. Okay. Honestly, y'all, I know you guys might be more in favor of a Michael Penix here, but I can't stress this enough. Offensive line, one of these guys is going to be a stud, and I'm referring to either Graham Barton or Jackson Powers Johnson. I'm stuck on the two.
So here's my piece of advice on O-line, and I'll let you go with your pick here and your gut here, Calvin. Versatility is key now in the NFL.
Right.
I don't think Jackson, like if Abe Lucas isn't able to get back from this knee injury, Graham Barton can always bounce out to tackle if you need.
Right, because he started at left tackle last year, right?
He start at left tackle, yeah. So he's a bit of he's like, kind of a Troy Fonatanu where he can go in and out.
Man, I think you just made our pick. Let's go for let's go for Graham Barton.
All right, we'll take
lock in Graham, man. Okay, now so he's in, and then now we're rolling down, and we're in the second round.
Yep.
Courtesy Detroit.
Okay. So
was that like pick 59, pick 60? Is that what it is?
It would be about, I think, about pick 50, pick 60, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so we'll just look at this. So Wiggins went. There you go, Mims.
Penix has to gone.
Cooper DeJean. So what's with the Cardinals, man? They're actually building a decent team in this draft. This is getting ridiculous. You got him and Buda Baker now in that back end for Arizona.
And then they have Byron Murphy, and then offensively they took Marvin Harrison. Whew.
Yeah. So here you go. Braden Fisk went to the Chargers.
Braden Fisk is gone, yeah.
Carolina took Jackson Powers Johnson. Oh, there you go. Michael Penix is off
to the
board.
Giants.
Yeah.
To the Giants. So they've got a guy possibly to replace Daniel Jones. Peyton Wilson went higher than I expected. He went number, at 18 to the Eagles.
So what do you think? What do you think we should address? Like, would you go back to back O lineman here? Like, it just fill it up and make it a draft like that, or what do you think? What else would you attack here?
Right here,
we talked about quarterback, but I mean, I wouldn't be mad at going back to back linemen, but what are you thinking, man?
Who are some of the Bryce? If you scroll down just a little bit from what I'm seeing right now, okay, so Junior Colson, Cooper Beebe, Malachi Corley. Seattle did have a visit with him. Jalen Polk.
Do you want me to bring up the edge rushers for you?
Please.
Okay, so here's edge and interior D line put together. So this is the top that's left. So Mason Smith's an interesting guy to me.
Mm-hmm.
Michael Hall's still there.
Leonard Taylor. Okay, and then if you could just also head over to the offensive line as well.
Yep.
Please and thank you.
So here's your interior O-line that's left. I'll go to the top for you. Oh, geez. Cooper Beebe, Christian Haynes.
Dominic Pooney, Christian Mahogany. Okay, Christian Mahogany.
Honestly,
I'm not completely against doubling down, but as far as value, I'm just not sure if I see any worth taking here. And so I hope you guys are cool with this, but give me Junior Colson. I think he's a linebacker one in this draft class.
Okay.
And he's a Mike McDonald guy. So
all right. So we'll get Junior Colson right here.
Beautiful. Okay. So right now, we got O lineman and a linebacker.
We got a versatile lineman, which is nice.
We do. Well, Graham Barton's a beast.
The way I look at Graham Barton, honestly, is it's like Troy Fontanu's 1B for versatility as a top tier or 1A, and Graham Barton's 1B. Like there's not a significant drop off between the two of them, in my opinion. So let's take a skip. So now we're up. We're gonna be up pretty quick here, guys.
Yeah.
So Michael Hall went right there. Kyrie Jackson. Cooper Beebe went to the Chargers. Man, the Chargers are having a good draft. There you go. So
and
one
Rattler.
Spencer Rattler is off the board. Which is okay for me because, as Ryan knows, there's a quarterback I really like that's still on this board, and his name is not Joe Milton.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So let's take a look at the big board here.
Yeah, go to all.
Yep. So we're good. Okay. So Corley's still on here. Jalen Polk. Now, I think personally, I've said this before, I think receiver's actually a secret need for Seattle that most people don't want to accept. Listening even to Tyler talk today in his press conference and the way he talked about how that whole contract restructure went, I actually think this is Tyler's last year, like truly is his last year.
Oh, wow.
I think there's a chance that, like you said, the receivers are a really deep class. We have 2 picks here, pretty close. We might be able to get a receiver and still be able to get an impactful defensive player.
You ain't lying. Okay.
John,
I mean, for me, I wouldn't mind. If you go back to that, like who are the top O linemen right now?
Interior O-line. Christian Haynes from UConn is a guy that's sneakily going up. There's a guy in here that I like that I think he's listed as an O tackle that we can get later on that I think's, again, Zach Zinter's another guy I really like.
Zach Zinter's interesting.
The other guy I really like, there's the one you were talking about earlier, Steezy. The other
Roger
Rosengarten. He's a good one.
His stock is on the rise.
Yep.
I'm really big on where is he? He should be in here somewhere.
Oh, Mahogany's still here.
Yeah, he's still there.
And so is McCormick. Yeah. Brandon Coleman from TCU is another guy I really like that I think we can get in the 4th or 5th round. And he could be a starter for us, no problem. And again, versatility. He's played tackle, but he can also move into guard.
Right. I mean, what do you think? What do you think would be like, just the third guy that you'd want to say, hey, let's just get deeper here, and just based on what the roster's looking like right now.
I think. Can we take a look at the quarterbacks real quick?
Yep.
Okay. So Michael Pratt, Joe Milton. Wait, Bryce, can I take a guess real quick? Because I'm trying to figure it out. Who's that quarterback? Is it Michael Pratt?
It is not Michael Pratt.
And it's not Milton.
Nope.
We'll scroll down a bit there, B-Rice.
Hartman, Jordan. Is it Jordan Travis?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm really high on Jordan Travis because if he hadn't gotten hurt, Florida State would have been in that college football playoff.
Right.
And the other thing I really like about Jordan Travis, he's 6'1", 212. He can make all the throws, but if you watch his college career, it went from first year trying to move him and switch positions to basically defying everything along the way to a point where when he got there, the last year at SFU he was there, they basically couldn't win games without him.
Yeah.
And when you talk about when John Schneider says, I need a guy that tilts the room, that's tilting a room is when your team depends on you that much. They can't just insert another 4 or 5-star guy and get the same production out of you.
Do you guys think that he goes on day 2, or do you think he could be
I
had?
think he goes on day 3 because of the broken leg.
Right. Okay.
And that also leads into if you get him with the broken leg and he's still coming off of that, Hal and Gino can still do your thing and you can carry him and he truly gets to learn for a year and then possibly compete with Sam Howell or Gino next year.
Right. It's kind of similar to how Hendon Hooker came into the league, torn ACL, essentially redshirted, his entire rookie year. Can you go through the big board real quick, Bryce?
Yep. I'm back to the big board here. Just give me a second.
And just touching on quarterback, that's how we are looking at quarterback, actually, just because we have the luxury of Gino and Sam Howell, sitting there under contract for another 2 years. I mean, if you think Gino will be there a lot long, but you don't have to bring a guy and throw him into the Wolves, right? So like a Jordan Travis, that can make sense. Any of these guys late, they can really sit and develop, right? Which is I'm so high on that, right? A lot of teams that have done that just have been successful, right? So that's why Jordan Travis, you kind of put him in the background a little bit, you kind of forget about him, and then all of a sudden here comes this guy healthy and ready to compete.
Here's the thing. We're not that far between. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 picks between our 2 third-rounders here.
Okay, real quick. Is Cameron Kitchens still available?
As a safety, let's go and take a look at our safety room. So Bullard, Bullock, Bishop. Now I really like Jaden Hicks out of Washington State. And James Williams is another one out of Florida.
Miami Mutant.
And let's see. I think Kitchens may have gone.
He's probably okay. Yeah, he was in Seattle. What was it yesterday? And so Seattle had no interest. That's a bummer. I would have went with him here. I think here though, man, I'm gonna have to. Let's go with Christian Mahogany.
All right.
Christian Mahogany.
Okay, boom. Okay, so there's another lineman, old lineman.
Okay, so we'll skip to our next pick here.
Biggest need.
So Mason Smith, there you go. Michael Pratt went off the board to Chicago. They got their quarterback of the future in the 3rd round. Jonathan Bullard, Jalen Polk. Now that's going to be interesting down there with that group of Kyle Pitts, Drake London, Christian Haynes. There he goes. Okay, so we're here in the 3rd. I want to go. Now this is my little send on this. I want to go safety.
You want to go safety here?
You can get a playmaking safety here. We've covered a linebacker that could potentially be in the rotation early with Junior Colson.
Mm-hmm.
We've dealt with the interior of our O-line, which we can still add someone later on.
Mm-hmm.
I think now because if you look at Rayshawn Jenkins' deal, and I know you said Julian Love and him are essentially playing on 1-year deals. Realistically, they can get out of their deals next year. Well, Julian's will be expired.
Right.
And they don't really have anybody there. And then you're left with Sutherland, Jarek Reed, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, covers a little bare there.
Right, exactly. And all 3 guys that we've talked about, Love, Wallace, and Jenkins, are all essentially playing on 1-year deals. So they could all be out the door next year if it doesn't work. Right. I think this is an opportunity based on the safeties to go and take a guy, either Cole Bishop or Jaden Hicks.
Honestly, let's go with Jaden Hicks.
Nice.
His stock is also on the rise. So if it's not Cameron Kitchens, and Jaden Hicks for sure.
All right. So lock that in. Boom.
There we go.
That's 4 picks out of the way already. So we're gonna get down here, and now we are round 4. 2 4th rounders and then 2 6th rounders.
Okay, so here we go. Corley went to the Colts.
So why don't you pull up that all board? Kind of see what we got. Zach's interest gone. When we see what we're working with in the all board. So you got
Blake Corum's still on the board. If Pete Carroll was here, Blake Corum would be in the Seahawks uniform.
He'd be gone in the 2nd round.
So Zach Zinter's off the board. Sadly, went to Tampa. Cole Bishop there, and of course he goes to the 49ers. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting now on what we want to do. So think about it this way. This is what we've selected so far. We've addressed needs. Mm. Now we have the luxury again of two very close picks. What we could do here, though, and I'm just going to throw this out there here to you, Calvin, we could trade back and try and get a 5th-round pick here. So we're not sitting out an entire round.
Right.
So you just want to accumulate more picks, B Rice, or would like?
I think
what's your
so.
thinking behind that?
Yeah, based on how this board's falling, I think we can come back and maybe come down a little bit in the 4th round, closer to our 2nd pick, and pick up a 5th-round pick to then give us not such a huge gap between 4th round, pick 18, and then we're not picking again to the top of the 6th round.
Right. So, okay, let me ask you guys this. Would you rather take a guy with this pick and then trade back from 18? Or do you guys want to trade back with this pick and then take a guy at 418?
I think trade back here because you're going to get more value for a higher pick in the 4th round.
That makes sense. Okay.
Than if we go at 18. And that's where I think this is where we can possibly get, I think, to me, the Raiders here, they're in, the Raiders or the Jets, they're trying to add some pieces.
Yeah.
I think if we trade with the Raiders, there's a chance we can get 2 picks out of them for the value of our forward number 2nd. And then there's only a 6-pick gap between us and 18, and we're not dropping too far.
That's a great point. I also think, the Raiders could use a Blake Corum. I know Zamir White showed some flashes last year, but they could use another running back, especially if they don't end up drafting a quarterback. I think, they drafted Bo Nix here, but they can always add to the running back room. Yeah, you know what? Let's trade with the Raiders.
Okay. So we will trade with the Raiders here.
Okay.
So let's go Las Vegas. There we go. Okay, so we'll take 12. Right. So you can see the value here. Now, if I throw 5, so again, they're coming up.
Right.
The value's comparable. We might be able to get this if it works.
Let's do it. Let's see.
They took it.
Oh, yeah.
There you go.
So and they didn't go with the expected running back. They went with Blake Fisher, O-tackle. So they're solidifying their O-line. So let's see now what happens if we skip back to our pick.
Oh, Blake Corum to the Cardinals.
See, the Cardinals are having a damn good draft. I'm terrified of the Cardinals.
Yeah, and I mean, they're well coached. So them next year.
Yeah, they got stuff brewing down there.
The Jets. So now the Jets have an actual receiving, to go with Garrett Wilson. They've got another guy. But you know what's kind of nice here? Is I look at this board and I go, okay, what does our safety room look like if we want to go safety again? James Williams is there.
Williams is still there.
He is still there.
Okay, can you go to the tight end room, please?
Yep.
Nice.
Theo Johnson's still there. Ben Sinnot's still there. So these two, I think there's a chance. Because remember, we only have 6 picks till our next one.
You know what? Okay, so it's still 2 tight ends. All right, if that's the case, because I did want to go Theo Johnson here, but like you just mentioned, it's a great point. We're 6 picks away. If Theo Johnson isn't there, hopefully Sanaa or one or the other. But you know what? Right here, let's go with James Williams. Let's go with the Miami Mutant. I think he could be coached up. He could be something great if he's coached up correctly.
And you look at his size. Who does that remind you of?
Bam. What?
It does. And
dude, it's huge.
So you think of the 2 safeties we've now added back-to-back with our picks. Mm-hmm. You just added – so now you've got 4 years of safety play in that room now. You don't have that as a worry. So
and on a cheap.
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
And the Bengals took Theo Johnson.
Okay.
So but you know what? Ben Sinnot's still there.
Okay. Is Jaheim Bell still there as well?
I believe he is. He's actually right there next to him.
Okay. Man, honestly, I wouldn't mind either. I know Seattle did have a visit or they hosted Jaheim Bell. Which of the two between these two guys do you guys think has higher or more upside?
I think Ben Sinnott does because I think he can be a bit better of a blocker. He's a bit bigger. He's about an inch taller. And if you look, he's got a bit steadier production. You look at what Ryan Grubb's going to do. He's already got his true receiving tight end in Noah Fant. He's got his true blocking tight end now in Pharaoh Brown. Ben Sinnott's a bit of in between. So if you go to a 2 tight end set, he actually gives you the ability to block and receive, and you're not really sacrificing anything. Jaheim Bell, I don't see him as the blocker. Yeah, and so now we have 2 receiving tight ends and only 1 blocking tight end. Ben Sinnott does a better job of filling that Colby Parkinson role that we lost.
So now it's gonna be the pick here then.
All right,
All
lock it. All right. So now we picked up a 5th, so we're rolling down to pick 13, skip to the pick.
Okay.
And
Joe Milton to Tampa Bay.
Okay,
Okay,
so for quarterbacks, man, we're kind of left with
Sam
your
Hartman
your
just went.
boy,
I think it's the time
Sam
for my boy.
Hartman went. Okay, so does that surprise you that he went over Jordan Travis, even though he's coming off obviously a huge injury, but he's the broken leg. If you're Denver, like, what are the advantages there taking Hartman?
Hartman fit the Peyton offense. If you look at
Yeah.
what Sean Payton likes, Drew Brees had a good arm. He didn't have a great arm.
Yeah,
It was highly accurate and highly intelligent. Sam Hartman, if you take out his Notre Dame year and you look at what he did when he was at Wake Forest, he was lighting up the ACC, high completion percentage. He fits what Denver wants to do.
sure. Okay,
And
I get that.
that's why I think you see it. And same with Tampa Bay taking a shot on Joe Milton. They've obviously re-signed Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
But
Well, he can sit for at least a year behind Baker, right? Or 2.
he can sit for a year, but you know
Year
who
or
he
2.
kind of fits that's still a part of that organization? He fits the Bruce Arian bombs away mentality.
Sure.
So that's why he fits there. I think, and I know it sounds crazy, I truly believe right now at 5'13", this is where we take Jordan Travis because I don't think he makes it to 6'3" or 6'16".
Okay.
Heck
Well,
not.
Steezy, what are you? Is that a guy you thought about before tonight? Just Jordan Travis, as far as like, hey, here's a guy coming off a big injury, but like the points B Rice brought up, and then the fact that he can sit behind our guys, and we don't even have to worry about that. Is that does a guy like that even excite you a little bit? Based on what you know about him, or?
Oh, most definitely. And when he went down with that injury, just to see his whole team kind of rally around him, I know that might seem like, I guess, the obvious thing to do, but the way and in the manner in which they did, it's to me, that's very telling. And it kind of shows me the sort of quarterback that he is in the locker room, how much respect they have for a guy like a Jordan Travis. And so, yeah, he was definitely on my radar. He's probably not in my top 3 as far as like the quarterbacks that I'll draft, but I mean, in the top 5 for sure, right around 4 or 5 on my list, on my personal list. And so I agree, Bryce. Let's go with Jordan Travis. There's no way he's going to make it to round 6.
All right, man. I like to hear that because now you got a QB on the roster, and that's exactly what I want to see. So that's so now you've taken care of a lot of needs right now. So if we go down to, we're in round 6. What I mean, kind of like you got like Bryce. We got 2 safeties. You got 2 offensive linemen, tight end, linebacker. You really hit up all the needs here so far. So what? I mean, Steezy, what are you thinking next as far as like just kind of best player available, or is there some other need that you kind of want to, defensive side of the ball, the edge?
Yeah, I'm not completely opposed to just going best player available, but at the same time, I also wouldn't mind addressing the defensive line, right? I do think that all of Seattle starters are set, right, with the Draymond Jones, with the Leonard Williams, with the Jaron Reed, but all these guys are a little older, right? And so I do want to have a younger prospect in the interior that Seattle could perhaps build around for the long haul. And so if there's anybody value-wise that's worth taking, I prefer to go there. But if not, wide receiver, edge rusher are 2 that I think we should also look to address.
So here's the thing. Interior D-line, Keith Randolph Jr. is really, and he's the other guy from Illinois where Newton's from.
Yeah.
I think Seattle's talked to him. I look at Seattle's interior D-line now with Leonard Williams coming back, Hankins being signed, Jaron Reed coming back after a stellar year. And I think now that with Leonard Williams there, you're truly going to see, I think, Jaron Reed be able to get more of a feel for what his rotation will be.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that really interests me here is Brennan Jackson from Washington State. If he's rising up boards like crazy, and the comp people are giving is Max Crosby.
Damn.
Oh my gosh, Max Crosby. So he has that motor.
He does. So if you look at his stats,
Okay.
so he didn't have to come back this year. He came back to Washington State. He could have transferred out. He's 6'4", 264. He had 57 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 3 pass deflections, and 1
pass
forced fumble.
Okay.
So again, this guy you're adding because I look at it this way. Darrell Taylor's on a 1-year prove-it deal.
Yeah.
Chenna's coming back from his torn pec.
Yeah.
Once Chenna went down, we didn't have another presence on that side. Draymond Jones was not the answer. He's an interior guy. I think you bringing Brennan Jackson and his flexibility on the edge and his ability to disrupt, I think this is, again, where you're taking a high potential ceiling guy in the 6th round of the draft, where if he pans out, you're laughing.
Yeah. Like how would he make it, until the 6th round? Yeah, honestly, let's go with Brendan Jackson. I mean, everything you're saying, Bryce, it's
Okay.
music to my ears.
So you got Brennan there. So now we got 2 picks. We talked about receiver.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think? I mean, you're sort of playing John Schneider as well. You see him taking a receiver. Like, I know Bryce brought it up a bit. Like, secret need possibly with some of the things that might be happening. You bring in a guy that's going to be cheaper. But what are you thinking? What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, definitely. And like we talked about at the top of the show, I mean, this class is stacked at wide receiver. There's going to be a bunch of guys that are, undrafted that teams are going to be clamoring for in the undrafted portion of the, I guess, draft process. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there are a few diamonds in the rough to be had, especially here. And John Schneider, I mean, if anybody knows, he knows about the future of Tyler Lockett and whether or not, he's going to be in Seattle for the long haul. And so if he ends up drafting a receiver, I think that's going to be a good indication. But yeah, let's go through some of these receivers. I mean, I think it's probably
Drake Stoops, Jordan Whittington, Jaquan Jackson. Now, there's one guy on this list that I would love because I think he fits and is possibly a replacement for Tyler and allows JSN to stay outside and be truly a number 2. And that's Taj Washington from USC.
He's also climbing up draft boards. I've been seeing that.
He is.
Yeah.
He's got good hands, 1,000-yard, averaged 18 yards per catch, which means he's either going to get you that intermediate to short, but he's going to catch it and make something happen with it.
Okay, so he's a yards after the catch type of guy as well.
He's a yards after the catch guy a bit. He can do a little bit of everything. And I think that's what you're looking for if you're looking to draft this receiver, because I look at our room, they bring in Chenault, but he's truly brought in more for the special teams game. D. Eskridge is still on this roster. I don't know how D's still here, to be honest with you. I think if you bring in Taj Washington, he pushes one of them out of the roster, and he actually gets in the receiving rotation. Yeah, he's not big. He's 5'10", 175, but
Tyler Lockett isn't either.
Yeah.
Hey, I was just gonna say, man, that the Hawks history, you go down the receiver list. How big was Doug? How big were some of these good dudes, right? I mean, they were clamoring for a big receiver for years, and then they finally get DK. I mean, they brought in Jimmy Graham, kind of, although he was a tight end. It was like, because they've let's go real quick, like even Golden Tate. I mean, the Hawks have been known for short receivers, so right. I think I don't think bringing in another guy that's 5'10" is really gonna.
So this is what I'll say about Taj Washington. So I'm just looking at his career stats at USC. So he has caught on average over 40 passes a year, and he has averaged over 700 yards a season.
Okay, that's not bad. So he's been catching passes though from Caleb Williams these last couple of years.
Caleb Williams, Slovis, he's been really getting on. He's got, so his average per yards per catch, the lowest he had was in 2021, which was 11 yards.
Yeah, I mean, hey, yeah, the dude's a baller. I mean, who do you like in this that's left in the receiver? Obviously, Washington's up there. Who else do you like? Who else do you think that stands out that's still left here? We're dropping down. We're dropping down here, but
yeah, honestly,
who's
some
at
of
the
the
top
guys
of that board? Yeah, go ahead, CZ.
I was just gonna say, like, some of the guys that I had interest in aren't even available any longer, and so honestly, I like what you guys are saying about Taj Washington. I mean, if everything you guys are saying is true, which I believe it is, then I think Seattle would have hit a home run with that. So let's go with Taj Washington.
Yeah, and he's moving up on guys' boards too, like you said. So, realistically, if he was in the sixth, I mean, probably a no-brainer, but that's how these things go sometimes. So, now we're down to the final two. No,
Wait, real quick.
We got one pick. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Malik Washington, he wasn't available, was he?
No.
You guys, okay. I was gonna say
Okay,
if he was there, I would
get him back in. Take it. Okay, yeah. So you're down to the final. We got our last pick here, man. So what do you want to do? What do you want to do here,
man? Okay, so we've addressed the offensive line, we've addressed safety, we've taken a linebacker, we've taken a quarterback, we've taken a receiver.
Last year with our 7th round, we went with Kenny Mack. So
right.
And that's a pick that we still yet to be seen. We're all still excited about him.
Right, he's essentially a rookie this year. I mean, shoot,
pretty much, right? So
right.
and that was interesting because we took 2 backs in that draft. So it's funny because you think it's 7th round, but it's funny when you can get excited about a 7th round pick. So still some guys, still some guys out there. I mean, what do you think, and what position you sort of leaning towards in this final pick?
Man, I don't. As far as position, I don't actually. No. I do have a preference: an interior defensive lineman.
Okay. Interior defensive lineman. All right. So the best one available is Myles Murphy from North Carolina.
Myles Murphy. Okay.
6'5", 310. So he's not truly like a Jonathan Hankins who's a nose. He can move up and down that 3-4 line a little bit,
which I think would be very, very useful, especially given what Mike Madonna has talked about with how he wants everybody to be versatile. Man, I think Bryce, again, you might have just made the pick for us.
He's very convincing, man. So you want to go with Myles? I mean, there's a guy, there's a D lineman, and then you sort of round that off right there. All right. So let's get a recap.
All right. So draft is done.
Yep.
Great.
I'd be very, very happy if this was Seattle's draft. Like,
right. So, all right, let's run through it, Steezy. So what is your thought overall with what we've done here?
Like we talked about earlier, yes, we went after needs, but at the same time, according to value, I really feel like we got a whole lot of value out of those needs. And so I don't think we made any rash decisions. I don't think we reached on anybody. And I do think that we kind of hit on, a majority of, if not all the positions that Seattle kind of needs to attack. And so, man, I'm very, very happy about this haul. We acquired more picks, right? And we still filled a bunch of needs. We got guys that we could have taken earlier, but we're still able to land later, with some of those trades that we did make. And so if I had to give this a grade right now, I'd probably say an A-.
Wow.
A-. Yeah, I really like this haul.
It's a great haul. I mean, the Graham Barton pick, it looks a little different. We did a mock last week, and the top 2 guys look a little different. But again, it depends where guys are falling in this draft. The one thing that I'm excited about too is that we did get a quarterback, even though that's a guy that isn't going to be playing next year. But
that's fine.
We're not expecting a guy to play next year. That's the luxury we got. So if you can get a guy like that, like you said, a dude that guys rallied behind an injury, and it does say a lot. Kind of talks about leadership and how much you want to play for a dude like that. So yeah, I agree, man. You kind of hit on some needs. I like it too. I mean, I'm probably in a similar boat with a grade for you, man. B Rice, what do you think overall?
Well, based on the fact that we were able to trade back, we ended up with 10 picks in total, so we added 3 to our haul. To be honest, my favorite part of this draft, I think, is between, round 3, Jaden Hicks and Brennan Jackson. That chunk right in there for me, I think we seriously got some playmakers that can come in a year or two and seriously make some noise with this team. And again, I like the fact we came out with a quarterback. We came out with one of my guys that I'm high on in Jordan Travis. I think overall it was a really good draft. I'd probably give it an A. The thing for me that was still interesting is how far Michael Penix actually fell in this, which was rather different than the ones we dealt with in the past. But, just for giggles, let's take a look at our NFC West counterparts and what they were able to walk out of this draft with. So
Arizona killed it.
Arizona killed it. Yeah.
They got the other UW tackle.
They did. So if you look at Arizona, Kyler's coming back off a pretty good returning year last year, half a season. Man, they got Blake Corum. They've got Marvin Harrison Jr. They've got Cooper DeJean to go.
I just want to say this real quick, Bryce, and my bad, I didn't mean to cut you off. If Seattle, for whatever reason, does not go offensive line in the first round, I really, 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 really want Byron Murphy. And so Arizona, to get him, the bona fide wide receiver one in the Marvin Harrison, Blake Corum, Cooper DeJean, Roger Rosengard. I mean, my gosh.
They nailed this draft.
They killed this draft.
They even got a good tight end down there at the end and Tip
Ryman.
Yeah. He's another guy I like. And then they even drafted backup in Plumlee, who we had talked about earlier.
Seattle taking a visit. Yeah.
So, I think, I'm not as high. If I had to choose between Brian Murphy and Newton, I'd go Newton. I think he has a higher upside and higher motor. But, man, if the Cardinals walked out of a draft with this, I would start being more concerned for us. So let's take a look now at the LA Rams.
If this is the draft that the Arizona Cardinals ultimately leave with, I think they might finish with a better record than Seattle next year.
There's a very
they got some things brewing down there, man. Like we talked about the new head coach. Yeah, the new head coach, the new culture down there, and just how they were a tough out last year. Everyone thought the Cardinals were going to be a joke, and they were fighting till the end, and that was a sign of, hey, this is a guy that these guys want to play for. So to your point, you start adding some talent like that. It doesn't take much, right? It just doesn't take much to turn it around quick.
You guys remember when they beat the Cowboys with who was it at quarterback? Josh Dobbs.
Yep.
I mean, he had a game, but in the way that they were able to beat up on the Cowboys, I mean, my gosh, that game really opened my eyes a little bit and said, to me, it showed that this team they're gonna be a tough out, like you said, Ryan.
Yeah, exactly. So now you're gonna now our division just doesn't get easier, right? So
here's the LA Rams' draft. I'm not as high on this draft. Besides their number one pick.
Lots of pick. I like that, but
that's a good pick. But I'm looking at the rest of this, and I'm like, Smith Wade's not a bad corner. I think he will definitely help them out. But overall, like, if I was to give the Cardinals a grade, I'd give them an A. I think they nailed their draft. A plus. I look at the Rams and I'm B minus, maybe C plus kind of area with what they did. Now the one that I'm terrified to look at is what the 49ers did.
They're already stacked across the board.
Already stacked.
So you've got Trent Williams and Mims now as your two tackles.
Yep.
They added Cole Bishop in the safety back end, which when they get I can't remember his name. They lost him last year. You know who I'm talking about, Steezy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, because I remember talking about him. Talanoa Hufanga.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, Talanoa Hufanga.
They got Thrash, who's a decent receiver out of Louisville, and they added another safety. So, and they took Brandon Coleman. Like, Grayson Murphy there from UCLA. Niners addressed a lot of areas of needs for them and areas of concern on a roster that's pretty stacked as it is. Man, I'd give the Niners probably a B plus A on this draft. I think they actually did a good job on this, which if the Niners walked out with a draft like this, I'd be concerned. Again, like, as much as we nailed our draft here, if these teams do what they do, like you said, the Cardinals get that type of draft, like, it's going to make it hard for Seattle to move from being the third seeded team in their own division in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
And I think this draft, I mean, obviously it's not, the cleanest of indicators, but it probably indicates that San Fran's going to keep Brandon Ayuk, because I do think that he potentially could get traded, but if they waited this long to take a receiver, he's probably still going to be on the team next year.
So speaking of a potential destination for Brandon Ayuk that I think a lot of people haven't talked about is Buffalo.
You think Buffalo would give San Fran their 20th overall pick for Ayuk?
28th overall pick. I don't see why not. If you're going to get an established young number one, fits
Second
your
team all
kind of,
pro.
yeah, fits your kind of mentality of playing in a system where he's not the number one target all the time. Which, you know, if you look at Joe Brady and the way he calls plays and designs things, when he took over, there was no real scheming of getting a particular guy open.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put anything past Buffalo making a move. They made the move for Diggs a few years ago. If San Fran's not going to buckle up and pay for Ayuk, I could see the Bills being a player, because if you're trading for Brandon Ayuk, he's probably one of the top receivers in this draft class if he was going to come out this year. So
Right.
you're still getting the same value. It's no different than when we traded for Percy Harvin and gave up our first round. Percy Harvin would have been one of the top receivers in that class. So, but yeah, so this is our draft for everybody. This is what the Seahawks walked out with Steezy A. Smith being GM.
Real fast, before we exit this draft, I know this isn't a draft question, but just because you posed it, Bryce, do you think it's more likely that Brandon Ayuk or T. Higgins is traded?
I think Brandon Ayuk than T. Higgins.
Ayuk. Okay.
Because T. Higgins with that franchise tag is still going to get his money as being one of the top paid receivers in the league based on the franchise tag rule. And I just see a way that they're going to try and work that out without Joe Mixon now on the roster, without Tyler Boyd on their roster now. I think they're going to find a way to pay T. Higgins. And if not, and he decides he's going to hold out, I think there's a chance T. Higgins does get traded, but it won't be till the trade deadline.
Okay. We're talking like way later then.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will exit out of this.
Yeah, man. Another interesting mock. Yeah, hey, awesome having you making the final decisions, playing GM, and yeah, man, that and in an A- draft from yourself, and B Rice gives an A. Yeah, it looks good. If we get somewhere near that, then I think we're all gonna be pretty happy with that, man. Yeah, like I said, man, we're 2 weeks out. Like it's coming up quick, man. So it's gonna get really, really exciting coming up, and then just talking post draft after. I'm just excited to see how this all shapes up, and it's just gonna be an awesome. I mean, last year was an awesome draft, because you had the number 5 generational pick and 2 first rounders, and just the hype around that. This year is just so much different. John on his own, this whole new regime. I have to say, the only thing is, we'll see what happens, because we're 16 and an 81. So I think we all kind of agree that he probably will trade down, unless there's somebody there that he's just like, I'm sticking and picking with, because I can't let this go. But regardless, I'm just excited. I'm really excited for this draft. What's your excitement level coming into this year?
Man, just a couple of things, Ryan, to kind of address what you just said. I don't know if you guys saw, but Michael Bumpus on Seattle Sports, he talked about how the 16th overall pick is almost essentially a top 10 pick. Because if we look at how the draft could potentially go, there could be as many as 6 quarterbacks off the board by the time Seattle picks at 16. And so you're going to see elite prospects falling down the board. And so if Seattle doesn't trade down, then I'm fine with that, just because that would mean that there was a quarterback frenzy and there was just a guy that Seattle could not pass up on. Like, let's say Seattle trades down from like 16 to 19, and they could still land, one of their guys. But if it's going to be from 16 and then they can only get into like the mid 20s, but then, there was a quarterback frenzy, I'd rather just stay at 16 because, last couple of years, Seattle has gone BPA, and some of our best players on our roster we've acquired through drafting BPA, right? Like JSN was BPA, even if that wasn't necessarily a need. Spoon was BPA, even if that wasn't any. K9 wasn't a need, but that was BPA. There's countless other examples. And so this is probably my favorite mock draft yet. And until I've done it with you guys, I had a lot of fun. I had a blast. But if this is the class that Seattle's leaving with, oh boy, watch out. But then the other teams in the division are also doing their thing. So it's like, man, I don't know. People still look at the NFC West as like that division in the NFL. But if these teams like the Cardinals and the Seahawks and the Niners that we just talked about too, if they leave with drafts like this, oh man, the NFC West again is going to be the cream of the crop, if it isn't already.
Speaking to your point there, Steezy, about them sticking at 16 because it's like a top 10 pick,
Yeah.
That gap from 16 to 81, we all know John Schneider. He's not going to want to sit there.
That's the only scary. Yeah, it's the only scary thing about
And the
that.
thing I look at in that point is who on Seattle could you trade to get a higher day 2 pick than their number 81? And there's one name that comes to mind for me, and that's Darrell Taylor.
Mm.
You think Seattle could get a day 2 pick for DT?
I think so. Here's the reason why. In day 2, remember, and so just for our listeners, that doesn't mean second round. That means it could be a third round. They could get their, 70th overall. You could end up with 2/3 again. But you've got a couple things working for you in your factor. He's on a guaranteed deal when you trade him. It's a 1-year deal. He's a young pass rusher. And he is, yes, last year he wasn't having the best year, but the year before that with a guy a compliment. Now, you're not bringing him in to be your number 1. But a team looking for a number 2, when he's the number 2, he almost produced 10 sacks.
Yeah.
So if you got a guy like that, when you still have Boye Mafe, you got Derek Hall, who everyone's hoping takes that next jump. And I think with Mike McDonald, actually, he fits his system better than he did with Pete Carroll. Chem is coming back. If you need to get a pick in there, I could see it where they go, hey, we're going to trade Darrell Taylor and a pick next year to get a day 2 pick, because John Schneider will not sit from 16 to 81 and twiddle his thumbs and watch quality players come off the board when he knows there's needs to be dealt with.
1,000%. And I saw this. I think I might have heard this on KJR. Forgot where I heard it, but Seattle, that gap from 16 to 81 is the biggest gap across all teams from one pick to the next. And so, yeah, that's way too big of a gap. I mean, if there was a quarterback, like let's say, I don't know, would you guys take a JJ McCarthy at 16? I'm
not high on him really, but I know B Rice a little bigger. I mean, I'd rather go Penix. But yeah, it's gonna be. I just think it's gonna be one of those things. I mean, B Rice brings up a good point. If you, like you said, that's, or to your point, if you bring a 16 pick in this draft is essentially like a top 10. So there's got to be guys that are coming up that really are intriguing John. So maybe he does stick there and pick there. And then, like to Bryce's point, he throws out a piece that's on this roster to acquire a day 2 pick, another third. So at least you got a couple more picks to play with. Because I mean, there's no guarantee, because like you said, there could be guys that you just can't pass up on. So I mean,
who knows? Maybe Tyler Lockett. I mean, I hate to say it, but maybe Tyler Lockett becomes a trade candidate. Another guy who you guys talked about at the top of the show, a Riq Woolen. I mean, I'd hate to do that, me personally.
The only guy I don't want to see traded, and man, would he get you a haul, is DK. That name's been tossed out, but it's no, man. I just love DK so much. I rave about him almost every time we're on this podcast. And I'm just like, and then the fact that Ryan Grubb's coming in here, and, how pissed off would Grubb be if you're like, hey, by the way, we just shipped out DK for some picks.
He would be. Because, I mean, with the DK, keep in mind, you guys, and you guys know this as well as I do, Seattle has been dead last in offensive snaps these last couple of years. And so some people are looking at DK stats and they're saying, oh, he hasn't had a season like his 2020 season when he had 1,300 plus yards, when Russ had that near MVP type of season, at least in the first half of the year. And a lot of people kind of look at that season as like the apex, right? And they don't think that DK can kind of get back to that. But when your team is dead last in offensive snaps 2 years in a row, and you're still putting up 1,000 plus yards, 7 to 8 touchdowns, or whatever the touchdown count is, I mean, my gosh, like I'm super, super excited about his potential. And, again, next year, Seattle has 3 or 4 comp picks. And so off the bat, Seattle already has 9 and 10 picks. And so if you want to dangle a future pick along with the current player on the roster, if you want to stay at 16, I think that's very feasible.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of comp picks got into play this year. I think that's a big thing. And I think there's one other reason. We talked about it, me and Ryan, on a previous show. If they don't take a quarterback this year, there's a quarterback that John has name dropped prior to this a couple of times, is Quinn Ewers from Texas.
Right. He'll be draft eligible next year.
And next year's draft is not like this year's draft, where if he has a good year, he's going to be sitting at the top or the top 10. If you got to trade up there, you might have to make a bigger package, and comp picks come into play there at that point.
Right.
Yeah. So Yeah, man, we'll see. Like, I think we're all excited, and we just throw out like a couple scenarios that that could happen. People think, well, if you stick at 16 and you gotta wait to 81, and if you don't, then you trade down, you accumulate some picks. We just threw out some scenarios like, no, you know what, you could stick at 16 and still accumulate picks. So that's where John Schneider comes into play and why he gets paid what he gets paid. So we just now we can get ready to sit back soon and just enjoy what's about to happen, man. So that was an awesome mock first half of the show, chopping up with you about some camp battles and quarterbacks they brought in. Real quick, what's been going on with you? Let our listeners know what you got going on, and how everybody can go over to your channel and where they can find you and all your stuff.
Man, as always, you guys, I had a blast. Thanks for taking the time again and bring me on. That was probably my favorite mark. Yeah, I haven't done too many, but up to date, that's my favorite mark yet. But to everybody listening at Hawkszone Rundown, if you guys aren't already tapped in, I mean, these guys have been doing a phenomenal job getting different guests on and just putting out content. StreamYard, that you guys are using StreamYard, which I think is real cool instead of Zoom. And so I promise you guys are going to like StreamYard. I mean, I've been using it for the last couple of years, and it's done a lot. It's done a lot for me, and so I love working with you guys, and obviously with the draft coming up in a couple of weeks, a lot of content is going to be flying, and so I'd love to bring you guys on the show. I've been going live weekly, every single Tuesday. I'm not sure if I'm going to go live next Tuesday. I mean, if there's something that happens, maybe, but if I end up going live next Tuesday, if you guys are free, I usually like to go live like around 7:30 p.m. Pacific time, and so. I'll keep in touch with you guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's really it for me. I mean, on Instagram and X, same handle as DZA Smith. I post more regularly, on those platforms. YouTube is more like a weekly type of thing. But again, I had a blast. So thank you guys.
Yeah, man. No, we had a blast having you on. So, guys, head over to Steezy's channel and get dialed in there, subscribe and just, because he's got awesome content and always pumping out great stuff. So Steezy, man, we enjoyed having you on, and we're definitely going to be having you on in the future and all that stuff. So
vice versa.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, peace out, you guys. Have a blessed night. Thanks again.
Hey guys, that was Steezy A. Smith, man. Once again, third time on the show, man. That was great, man. Having him on again, kind of, just dialing in when we talked about the first part of the show. When I brought up guys like Riq, obviously he knows some of the guys, and just, he kind of gives that little inside info. He's talking about the shoulder, Riq, possibly, hey, not using the excuse, but hey, wait a second, let's slow it down. Maybe there's something to do with it. And he even admitted, hey, man, if he comes into training camp and he should be healthy and it's the same thing. Okay, well, no. But, just having him on and just kind of giving those insights, just kind of really cool from his perspective.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Having Steezy on's great. He's always dialed in with guys there, and, living in the area, he gets a lot of insider stuff. So it was really good to have him on. That might be actually my favorite mock that we've done so far out of them all.
Interesting.
We were able to hit on a lot of needs. We were able to trade back and get some good value. And again, like, I'm very high on Jordan Travis. Yeah. I think if we can get him in the 5th or 6th round, I truly think that might be a home run steal for Seattle. I don't know how many people out there have really dug into Jordan Travis in his film, but he's definitely, for me, one of the, honestly, and I'll say this out here, and people may think I'm crazy, I'm going to get blasted. If he hadn't broke his leg,
right,
I think he's in that Heisman vote last year over a guy like Bo Nix. And I truly believe that he'd be one of the top 7 quarterbacks, if not in the top 5 conversation, if he was truly healthy.
So I got to ask you this, I know, we talked on him, and we don't know how real this is, but when Penix was sitting there at the end of the first round, now if that was what is going to happen in a couple of weeks, you got to take him. I mean, we've talked about Penix. You were high on Penix. Are you going to take an old lineman, or do you not see Penix potentially being a long-term solution for somebody? And because we were talking about Penix, I know you were high on Penix. and obviously he's going up everybody's draft board. We don't even realistically think that he's going to be there in the late first. But if he's sitting there, and I don't even know what number that was. Was that what 28, 29, end of the
29.
first round? I mean, do you like, I know these are mock drafts, but do you not take him there? Do you take a Graham Barton over him? Like what are you looking at
Honestly,
there,
man, I think you have to take him because you get the 5 years, you get the auction year. So you truly get him for 4 years of potential starting capability with the year of him sitting.
Yes.
And not having to force him into the role. So do like, Green Bay or some of these other teams do where they sit him for a year so he learns the system. He get like, I don't know how they would pass on him there.
I would be screaming at the TV if they passed on him that late.
If he's there, like I don't know how Ryan Grubb doesn't go up to John Schneider and Mike McDonald and be like, "Give me this guy. This is my guy."
And I can see 16. Okay, like that. Okay, you take a guy like Tanu or something. Okay, I get it, right? And even then, I'd see like, well, are they going to take him? But like, yeah, if he's down there, dude, I mean, you
like kind of have to because in our mock it was crazy. He went all the way down to mid of the second almost and went to the Giants.
Yeah, little unrealistic. We're thinking. I mean, when the mock before
like it wasn't like I don't see him going that far. Like if I was a betting man right now, I'm thinking he's going to be in black and silver next year.
Yeah, and I don't want to agree with you, but I don't
see how they pass on him. If he doesn't end up in Seattle, his skill set and what he does well screams Raider quarterback. Throws the deep ball well.
Dude, he just but I agree.
He would be so good for that organization in leadership. Like you listen to Kalen DeBoer talk about him and his impact. And even when we had Greg Bell on saying like when they were in the locker room after the national championship, how many guys were actually more upset from Michael Penix than they were for themselves that they had lost the national championship. Like that's the guy. That's when we talk about leaders and guys that tilt a room. Like Steezy said, and what I've been saying about Jordan Travis, when he got hurt for Florida State, how it affected that team, not just on the on field, but in the locker room. That's what you need. And like, people are so quick to get rid of Geno. Geno's been a very good leader in Seattle. Like that's one of the qualities I think that kind of gets maybe lost with Geno is how good of a leader he has been in that locker room.
Yeah.
For the Seahawks. And I think in a lot of areas, and this is my own personal take, I think he was a better leader than Russ ever was.
Right.
I think Russ was truly not a good leader. And I think that's been put on display with the fact of him going other places and not having the success or the buy-in and getting blasted by players on social media. Yeah. Good leaders like Tom Brady never really got blasted on social media. Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers, John Elway. Like I know John Elway wasn't really a social media thing, but you never saw these guys get put on blast. Even now when they talk about their quarterbacks who are retired, all you ever hear is like how great of a locker room and how hard they pushed us. And this, I don't think if they ever did like a E60 on the Seahawks, you're getting guys in there going, man, Russell pushed us so hard and Russell was this. And like, you're not. Geno, on the other hand, you can tell by the way the guys talk about Geno. Like, was it last year or the year before he did the press conference and Tyler and DK were up there on the press conference with him?
Well, I think what Geno shows is just real. He shows that also that authenticity and leadership role where, we can go on about Russ because, that he was almost the exact opposite as far as the authenticity was concerned. Guys see through that, in 2 seconds. So the Geno, that was the breath of fresh air that we saw from Geno, where it's like he came up in the press conference. He wasn't a robot. He played with some emotion. He wanted to be that leader and he cared about everybody. So that was a refreshing thing. And again, guys, we love Geno Smith, but the fact is you got to keep looking for the future. And Geno is 35 years old and, coming near the end of this deal and he's going to be paid, a big chunk of money and you got to look forward. So that's why, with a Penix would be a late first round, you got to take him. But, like I said, man, overall, really, I agree. That was an awesome mock that would, beside obviously different things like we just mentioned, talked about Penix for the last 5 minutes, you still got a quarterback. So, and a guy that can sit. So I'm excited. I'm just excited leading up here. And yeah, man, like I said, we got a couple of really shout out to Steezy actually once again. And guys, by the just here at the end, please go follow his stuff. Steezy A. Smith. He's on everywhere. Just Google him. You're gonna find him. But yeah, go follow his stuff. He's awesome. And like I said, we got some big stuff coming up too. Some really cool guys coming on in the next couple of episodes, and then that's just gonna take us right up to the draft. So guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, hit the like, hit the notification button, and just share and help us out so we can keep bringing you guys the content. And but yeah, man, and everyone who has, we appreciate the support and continued support. And yeah, we're just gonna keep bringing you guys just continued content and guests and all that good stuff. So that's it for us tonight, man. Good episode.
Yeah, man, I had a lot of fun and really looking forward to our 2 guests that we got coming up here. It's going to be a lot of fun over the next couple of shows that we got coming up for you guys.
All right, so that's all for us tonight, man. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.